Hey everyone, welcome to another vlog. So at this point, I feel like I might as well just keep going. I figure I gotta jump on Vlogmas. I started Vlogmas early, like every year I do a daily video for the month of December, but why not start in the middle of November? I mean, who says it has to be December, right? But I can't be like filming my day every day. It's just too much. But I want to keep this going. And like I said in my previous video, it's interesting for me also because when you're making videos about your own life, you start to see yourself from a different perspective. And so it's kind of given me some good insights. And the one thing that really stands out to me is how utterly unmanageable my living situation is with running a reselling business out of this little apartment. And so the question, of course, comes up, why don't I just move? And the other question is also, why don't I live with Aaron? And why don't we just all move in together? And in fact, Jane was asking me about this again. So I did make a video about this a few years ago, but since you guys are asking, and you especially, Jane, I figured, you know what, I'll just make another video about it. I'm going to explain it to you again. So there's so many reasons why moving is not a simple thing on many different levels. Believe it or not, money is really not the issue. It's a whole bunch of other stuff. As in, I could afford an apartment, somewhere else. That's not a problem. I could also afford a larger apartment in this building if the landlord would give me one. But there's reasons why I might not want to do that. So I'm going to tell you why Aaron and I still don't live together, but I'm also going to tell you why I kind of hesitate to move. Okay, so I hesitate to move, one, because of Gunnar, because of the stability that he has. He's on the autism spectrum, and he doesn't take well at all to changes. Also, having lived in this neighborhood for a certain amount of time, he's very familiar with the area. He knows how to use the transit in this area. And I can, he can go to the store. I can send him to the post office. Like he has a certain amount of autonomy by living in an area that he's familiar with. And now he's not in school and he's not working. And I can make another video about that, but let's not get too much into it. So he's liable to stay in the house a lot. And I think that if he was moved into another area, first of all, he would hate the fact that we moved. Everything would be new. Everything would be unfamiliar. He would not know how to get around. He wouldn't know where anything is. And I think it's likely that he might end up just staying in the house even more than he already does. So number one, I'm afraid that it's going to destabilize Gunnar, and he's going to end up really holed up and really isolated. Because we're in a very central location. So that's the other thing, the location of this place. We're in a great place right near all the metros, buses, stores, walking distance to just about everything, relatively. If I were to move, because of the cost of apartments, unless it was in this building, it's likely that I would end up in a different neighborhood, probably quite a bit further away from downtown. For that, it would mean also Gunnar would be further away from the people that he does know. For Gunnar, I think that it would create a lot of problems. Be the location. I mean, it's just great. I can do most things on foot. I'm really close to everything, and it's just a really great spot. I don't want to drive a lot. I certainly don't want to be on the highway. I don't want to have to commute from, I don't know, the South Shore or Longueuil or somewhere else. So this is a great spot. And also, I like that it's very multicultural. In Quebec, we're divided very much along language lines. There are some neighborhoods where it's kind of cliquey based on your ethnicity. And I'm not talking about like the black neighborhood or I'm talking about the French neighborhoods. That's what I'm worried about. Like, for example, the Hochelaga neighborhood it's affordable, but it's French. There's a lot of neighborhoods that would be more affordable, but they're French. And I would just feel probably like not as welcome. Even though I was born here, I do consider myself Quebecois, even above Canadian. I'm really a Montrealer and a Quebec person. but I think I would feel a bit awkward living in a neighborhood with French Canadians. Not that I have anything against them, but I feel like it would be really harder. It would be more isolating, and it would really be isolating for Gunnar and Aaron because they don't even speak French. I like that I'm in a neighborhood where it's so multilingual, multi-ethnic that nobody cares that I'm an Anglo. Even though I was born here, I am bilingual. My parents are immigrants though, and so I'm not like, French Canadian, right? So I really enjoy living in the immigrant neighborhood because nobody gives a shit. Okay, another reason why I hesitate to move, and this is a really big one, is that because I'm Aaron's caregiver, and if I was living somewhere else, it would make it really complicated because I'm kind of like on call for him. And yeah, I mean, just imagine if I had to come downtown and figure out how to park, and then I'd be kind of stuck down here for a few hours. I mentioned the other day, it just make it complicated. Like we have this perfect system going right now. I'm like a live-in caregiver, except I don't have to live with him. And another reason is that if Gunnar and I moved away, it would break up the family. That's always been a huge issue. So I'm concerned that that would not only isolate Gunnar more, but it would also isolate Aaron more. So why don't we all just move in together? Well, this is what I had explained in a previous video. The situation has changed a bit, but it turns out not all the problem is solved. So Aaron, up until recently, was on disability. Now he's on retirement. When you're on disability in Quebec, if you live with a spouse, you can't collect disability. Even though we're not legally married because we have a child, we would be considered married in Quebec if we live together because we have a child together, which would mean that we are spouses, and therefore he loses his disability. Now, I've always been a hard worker, but I've never earned enough that I could support the entire family. And I also had a lot on my plate, taking care of Gunnar and doing all these things. And I don't see how it would have been possible for me to then also like earn so much that I could cover both of us. On top of that, technically I'm actually his employee. I'm not even his spouse or his partner or anything, even though, yes, we have a child together, but on paper, I'm actually just his employee because I was his employee in the first place on paper, even though, yes, I love him and everything, but technically I've always been his employee. And then I said to him, I want to have a child. And so lucky for me, he was on board and we went and did that. But on paper, I've always been his employee. He has a bank of hours that he can hire caregivers. And I think the reason he has those hours is because he lives alone. If he then lives with his spouse, he just loses hours, which means I lose the income that I get from that, which means he loses the money that I bring into the family through the income that I get from that. So basically, if we lived together, now he would not lose his disability because he's now on retirement, but I would lose my income, as his caregiver. So what are we supposed to do then? I mean, it does make a difference because that has been my main source of income, even though it's very little. I mean, I tell you, it's like $25,000 a year. So it's not a whole lot. But if I lost that, then all I'd have is Poshmark, So that is definitely a consideration. And another thing is, we're not really sure that we want to live together. We've been together for 21 years and about 6 months, and we've always gotten along really well. And I feel like part of the reason for that is that we have our own space. If we lived together and it was a really big house and we could like stay out of each other's way, then I think we could get along. But we're very different, and we have different lifestyle. Like, for example, I'm kind of more organized and on schedule, and I'm, you guys know, you see how I am. I'm like very focused on what's got to get done on my work. And Aaron is just kind of, it's a little bit more free form, Aaron's a morning person. He wakes up at like 6 or 7 in the morning. I'm a night owl. I go to bed at like 3 or 4 in the morning. So you can imagine the conflict in schedules. And then when he wakes up, he's going to make a ton of noise. He's going to wake me up. So I don't know how that would work. I won't be able to do anything at night because I'm going to keep him up. So we're completely opposite in that way. We haven't lived with anyone in like 20 years. So we're both really used to living in our own space and it being our own space, that we live how we want, we keep the schedule we want, we do what we want. It would be really hard to adjust to like having another person in your space. I mean, I can deal with Gunner. He and I work well together, but I don't know about Aaron. Like, we're really different. And I think, I don't know if we might argue. Like, we never fight. We never really argue the way it is now because, he has his place and I run my own household and there's no problem, we just keep things separate. But if we live together, I don't know. Unless it was a really big house and like maybe he had a suite in the basement or adjoining, or no, well, not the basement unless it was accessible, but like an adjoining suite or something. And here's another thing. I kind of like it quiet. I don't listen to music. I work all the time. You guys know that. I'm really focused most of the time on whatever task I'm trying to accomplish. Aaron sings a lot of karaoke. So how can I live in a house where someone is constantly playing music and singing karaoke like all day and listening to videos loud like all day? Gunner's pretty quiet. He keeps headphones on. I just feel like it would be so stressful, So I don't really want to live with him, and I don't think he really wants to live with me. We just like to be right next to each other. Unless, of course, like I said, it was a really big house and there was enough space for both of us. But imagine, plus with all the stuff that I have, all the stuff that he has, and a wheelchair, which means you need a lot of space. Imagine how incredibly crowded it would be to live in like a downtown apartment. Even if there was an extra bedroom, it would be, I think, just as unmanageable as what I'm doing now, probably more. So basically, those are the reasons that we don't live together and I can't figure out what to do. I want to be right near him, but I don't really want to be in the same house with him unless it's a really big house and we have lots of space, which I can't afford. I don't want to be in a neighborhood I'm not comfortable in. I don't want to destabilize Gunner. I want to stay downtown, but to have a big enough place downtown, can't afford it again, So yeah, that's why, like, I just can't figure it out. I can't figure out what to do. And some people have said, like, rent a storage locker. I already have one. It doesn't work for me because, like, for keeping inventory. It's very, like, awful and sketchy. There's crackheads that, like, live in there, and I'm scared to even go. I haven't been there in, like, more than 6 months, probably a year. And I'm paying for it every month, but I don't even go there. Rent an office space, I don't make enough money to do that. And the other thing is I'm all the time like toggling between their needs and my business. So imagine if I had all my stuff somewhere else and then I have to like run back and forth between this other place. I think the best solution would be to have a larger apartment in this building. The problem with that is I really just don't want to pay for it because I still have the dream of saving up my money so that I can actually get a condo or a house at some point when I figure out where that condo or house would be in such a way that it doesn't do all those other things that I don't want to happen. That's why I don't want to give the landlord more money every month. I want to give it to my broker and I want to one day own my own place. That's the truth. That's my plan, hopefully. So I feel like I'm just kind of in limbo. It's really hectic, like having all this inventory in here. Other than that, other than the size of the apartment, everything's fine, for all of us. We love it. We love being here. We love this place. The downtown, everything. We love being right next to each other. Everything's perfect. Except that it's so cluttered and so unmanageable. And I feel like Sisyphus, like pushing up a giant rock and then having to do it over and over again. Like the tasks just pile and pile and pile. So anyway, you were asking why we don't live together, and that's the reason. Oh yes, and of course that I would lose my income as a caregiver. That's a big part of it. That's why we don't live together, and why I don't move is all the other reasons. It's kind of late. I'm probably a bit rambly about this, but I wanted to make a daily video. And so there, I hope that you found that interesting, and You can leave me your comments. I might not take your advice, but you can go ahead anyway. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.